The first time Isabel came out of my shower wearing my robe, I dropped a carton of eggs on the kitchen floor like a teenager in a bad sitcom. Not my proudest moment. I was 33 years old, a grown man with a mortgage, a photography business, and enough emotional scar tissue to know better than to stare at a woman in wet hair and bare feet like she had just walked out of a dream I had no right to be having. But there she was, my roommate, my wife, and the only woman I had spent 2 years pretending I did not want. Isabel Navarro stood in the hallway between the bathroom and the kitchen, swallowed by my old navy robe, the sleeves hanging past her hands. Her dark hair was damp against her cheeks. A little line of steam followed her out into the apartment, curling around the yellow light like it had nowhere better to be. She looked at the eggs splattered across the tile, then at me. "Should I apologize?" she said, "or should I be offended that I caused a dairy-adjacent accident? They're eggs." Still dramatic. "You're in my robe." "Our robe," she said, lifting her chin. I stared at her. She stared back. Then she smiled, but it didn't land the way her smiles usually did. It was smaller, nervous at the edges, like she had walked out there on purpose and was now deciding whether she was brave enough to finish what she'd started. "I think," she said quietly, "it's time we stopped pretending." That was the moment my life split cleanly in half. Before the robe. After the robe. To understand why I didn't just kiss her right there, you need to know that Isabel and I were not one of those couples who accidentally fell into living together after too much wine and one impulsive lease. We were a contract, a favor, a legal arrangement with matching towels. 2 years earlier, Isabel had been my neighbor's friend, the kind of woman who came to a barbecue with homemade empanadas, corrected my terrible Spanish without mercy, and somehow made everyone at the table sit up straighter. She was 29 then, an architectural designer from Chile, sharp as a thumbtack, and twice as dangerous if underestimated. She had been married once before to an American man named Daniel, who had died suddenly before her immigration process was finished. I didn't know all the details at first. I only knew that grief had left her pale and quiet, and paperwork had made it worse. Her life had become appointments, forms, deadlines, and the humiliating experience of proving to strangers that love had existed before death interrupted it. I met her properly in a laundromat during a thunderstorm. She was arguing with a dryer, not with the person who owned it, the machine itself. "You took my quarters," she told it, "and now you refuse to heat. That is theft with buttons." I had offered her my last 3 quarters. She looked me up and down and said, "Are you always this heroic, or only around appliances?" "Only the weak ones." That was Isabel. Even on the worst day of her life, she could make a joke land, right? At the time, I was still rebuilding from my own kind of wreckage. My fiancé had left 8 months before our wedding because, in her words, I was safe, kind, and not enough. That sentence had followed me around like a bad smell. I threw myself into work, weddings, corporate headshots, restaurant shoots, anything that let me watch other people live boldly from behind a camera. Then Isabel's lawyer told her there was a chance she'd have to leave before her case could be sorted out. I wish I could tell you I thought carefully. I wish I weighed every consequence like a responsible adult with a decent credit score. But what I remember is Isabel sitting on the curb outside my building at midnight, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of gas station coffee, trying not to cry because she hated crying in front of people. "I cannot lose another home," she whispered. And I said, "Then don't." She looked up. I should have stopped there. Instead, I said, "Marry me." She laughed because she thought I was making the worst joke in human history. I wasn't. We did it properly, or as properly as two terrified people can do a ridiculous thing. We talked to a lawyer. We made sure she understood every risk. We agreed on boundaries so clear you could frame them. Separate rooms, shared expenses, public appearances only when necessary, no romance, no blurred lines, no taking advantage of gratitude, loneliness, or fear. We were not in love. That was the sentence we repeated until it started sounding like a prayer. By the end of the first year, she knew how I took my coffee, and I knew which of her sweaters could never go in the dryer under penalty of death. She left sticky notes on my camera bag that said things like, "Eat real food, American raccoon." I fixed the squeaky cabinet above her desk because she said it was ruining her concentration and possibly her will to live. On paper, we were married. At home, we were two careful people standing on opposite sides of an invisible line. Except the line had been moving. It moved the night I came back from a wedding shoot with a migraine and found soup on the stove, lights dimmed, and a note that said, "Do not be stubborn." It moved when she fell asleep on the couch during a movie and her hand slipped against mine, and neither of us moved for 20 full minutes. It moved every time she walked into a room and I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. And now she was in my robe, with wet hair, saying she was tired of pretending. I bent down because cleaning broken eggs seemed safer than answering. "You're going to slip." I am standing still. Emotionally, maybe. She gave a tiny laugh, but it broke halfway through. That got me to look at her. Her smile was gone now. She tightened the robe belt around her waist, not because it was open, but because she needed something to do with her hands. "Ethan," she said. My name sounded different in her mouth that night. Not casual, not teasing, not the way she said it when I forgot to buy cilantro or left lens caps in the laundry again. It sounded like a door opening. I stood slowly, egg carton still in my hand. "What happened?" She glanced toward the dining table. Only then did I notice her phone lying there, screen lit, one email open beneath the warm kitchen light. I knew before I read it that it was from immigration. For 2 years, every envelope, every notification, every request for evidence had turned our apartment colder for a few minutes. We would sit side by side, knees almost touching, pretending the stakes were practical instead of intimate. Then we'd answer what needed answering, breathe again, and go back to pretending our life together was temporary. But this time, Isabel didn't look scared. She looked undone. I walked to the table. She followed, close enough that I could smell my shampoo in her hair, which was such a small, stupid detail that it nearly knocked the air out of me. The email was short. "Interview scheduled. Next Friday. Bring supporting evidence of your marital relationship." I swallowed. "That's soon," I said. "Yes. We'll handle it. That is what we always say. Because we always do." She shook her head, and when she looked at me, her eyes were bright. "No, Ethan, we handle paperwork. We handle bills. We handle pretending at dinners with your sister and smiling in photos and sleeping in separate rooms while everyone thinks we are just private people." My pulse had started doing something unreasonable. She stepped closer. Not much. Just enough that the robe brushed my wrist. "But I do not know how to sit in front of a stranger next Friday," she whispered, "and lie about being in love with my husband." Her fingers found the edge of my sleeve. "When I'm not lying anymore." For a second, the apartment made every sound except the one I needed. The radiator clicked. Water dripped from the shower head down the hall. Somewhere outside, a car rolled through a puddle. Isabel's fingers stayed on my sleeve, light as a question. I looked at her hand because looking at her face felt dangerous. If I looked at her face, I might believe her. If I believed her, then every rule I had used to keep from ruining us would collapse at once. "Isabel," I said, and hated how rough my voice sounded. She let go immediately. That hurt more than it should have. "Sorry." She took half a step back. "I should not have said it like that. No, don't. It's fine." She folded her arms, the robe sleeves flopping over her hands. "This was very dramatic. I blame your robe. It has too much emotional range." Despite everything, I laughed once. Her mouth trembled into a smile, then faded. "I don't want you to feel trapped," she said. That finally got my eyes up. "Trapped? You married me because I was desperate. I married you because you needed help." That is a prettier way to say desperate. It's the true way. She looked away, jaw tight. "And now I am standing here telling you I have feelings for you 1 week before we have to convince immigration our marriage is real. That is suspicious timing." "Isabel, I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're scared." Her eyes flashed back to mine. "Of course I'm scared." "Of me?" "No." She said it so quickly my chest ached. "Never of you." The answer hung there between us, soft and absolute. I set the egg carton on the table. Then I did what I should have done the moment she touched my sleeve. I reached for her. Slowly, because everything between us had always been built on consent and caution. My fingers closed around her wrist, gentle enough for her to pull away. She didn't. Her skin was warm from the shower. Her pulse kicked beneath my thumb. I need to say something, I told her. She inhaled. Okay. If you're saying this because of the interview, because you think it'll make things easier or cleaner or more believable, I'm not. Let me finish. Her eyebrows lifted. You are very bossy for a man who dropped 12 eggs. 11. One survived. Miracle egg. Isabel. She pressed her lips together, trying not to smile. Fine. Continue. I held her gaze and the humor drained out of me. If this is fear, I said, we don't act on it. We go to the interview. We tell the truth as much as we can. We deal with whatever happens. But I won't let you turn gratitude into a marriage bed because some government office put a date on a calendar. Her expression changed, something vulnerable opening beneath the surface. I know, she whispered. That is why I fell in love with you. There are sentences a man imagines hearing. I had imagined plenty from Isabel. Usually at 2 in the morning, like an idiot, lying in my bed on the other side of the wall from hers, listening to the old pipes and trying not to picture her hair spread across a pillow. But nothing I imagined prepared me for the real thing. Not the calm way she said it. Not the way she looked embarrassed afterward, as if love were a dish she had prepared too carefully and was afraid I wouldn't want to taste. I let go of her wrist only to take her hand. Her fingers slid between mine. I fell in love with you too, I said. She went still, completely still. Then she blinked hard. No. That startled a laugh out of me. No? No, you cannot just say that. I thought that was the point of this conversation. You say it like you are reporting the weather. I am not reporting the weather. You are. Cloudy, chance of rain, by the way, I love you. Do you want me to be more dramatic? Yes. I stared at her. She stared back, eyes shining. And because she was Isabel, because she had walked out in my robe and cracked open the life we had built out of restraint, I stepped closer until our joined hands were caught between us. All right, I said quietly. I love you so much it has made me stupid for 2 years. Her breath caught. I love you when you curse at your drafting software in 3 languages. I love you when you steal my socks and pretend they migrated. I love you when you fall asleep with your glasses on and deny it even though there are marks on your nose. A tear slipped down her cheek. I brushed it away with my thumb before I could overthink it. I love you, I said, softer now, because this apartment became home when you moved into it. Not because of the paperwork, not because of the story we told people, because you're here. She closed her eyes for half a second, leaning into my hand. Then she whispered, better. I laughed, and this time when she smiled, it reached all the way through her. Do I get a review score? I asked. 4.5 stars. What cost me the half? You mentioned the sock thing, petty. You steal them. They are warmer when they are yours. That undid me. Not the confession, not the robe. That, the tiny domestic truth of her wearing my socks because some part of her wanted my warmth before either of us had been brave enough to ask for more. I cupped her face. Can I kiss you? Her answer was not a word. She rose on her toes and met me halfway. The first kiss was careful for about 3 seconds. Then Isabel made a small sound against my mouth, and every disciplined, noble thought I had ever had packed a bag and left the country. Her hand slid up my chest, fisting in my t-shirt. I wrapped one arm around her waist, pulling her close, and felt the soft give of the robe, the heat of her body beneath it, the way she fit against me like we had been designed by the same reckless architect. She kissed like she argued, with focus, intelligence, and a complete refusal to surrender. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Her forehead rested against mine. We need rules, she said. I laughed breathlessly. Now? Yes, now. Before you look at me like that again and I forget my own name, how am I looking at you? Like the eggs were worth it. They were. She smiled, then grew serious. Her fingers loosened in my shirt but didn't leave. I don't want our first real night to be because we're scared, she said, or because an interview is coming, or because I wore a robe I may have chosen for strategic reasons. I knew it. It was hanging there. I am not made of stone. My thumb traced the curve of her cheek. Then what do you want? She swallowed. A date. That single word hit me harder than expected. We had grocery shopped together, eaten takeout on the floor, attended birthday parties and office dinners, and once an unbearable couples game night where Isabel had invented a fake story about our first kiss that was so detailed my sister cried. But we had never had a date. Not a real one. Not one where I could pick her up, look at her too long, reach for her hand without pretending it was an accident. Tomorrow, I said. Her eyes warmed. You are available? I'll cancel anything. No, don't cancel work. I don't want to be a disruption. I kissed her once, quick and certain. You are not a disruption. You are the plot. She laughed into my mouth, and I felt that laugh everywhere. Then the oven clock blinked 9:17. The eggs congealed on the tile, and real life crept back in with its paperwork and interviews and fragile deadlines. But Isabel didn't step away. She took my hand, lifted it, and kissed my knuckles like she was making a promise. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow. And Ethan? Yeah? She glanced down at the ruined eggs. You are cleaning that. Of course I am. Good. She turned toward the hall, still wearing my robe like a victory flag. I will make tea. I watched her go, my heart beating with a joy so sharp it almost hurt. For 2 years, we had pretended to be married. Tomorrow, I would finally get to court my wife. I had photographed 112 weddings, 34 engagements, and one extremely tense vow renewal, where the groom's mother wore white and the bride accidentally spilled Merlot on her. So naturally, when it came time to plan one date with my own wife, I panicked. By noon the next day, I had 4 restaurant tabs open, a florist on hold, and a text drafted to my sister that read, "What is romantic but not aggressive?" Never mind, don't answer that. Isabel found me at the dining table surrounded by evidence of my collapse. You look like you are planning a hostage exchange, she said. I closed my laptop. Date logistics. Ah, so yes. She was wearing jeans, a cream sweater, and my gray socks. Her hair was loose over one shoulder, and she had no idea, or maybe she had every idea, what that did to me. I was thinking dinner, I said. Maybe somewhere nice. Her eyes narrowed. How nice? Nice. Ethan. Tablecloth nice. She made a face. No. No? No tablecloths. I thought women liked tablecloths. Women are not a species of decorative bird. Noted. She came around the table and leaned one hip against it, close enough that her knee brushed my thigh. It was nothing. It was everything. I want a date with you, she said. Not with the man who thinks he must prove something. That landed squarely in the soft place under my ribs. I do want to prove something. Her expression gentled. I know. I want you to know I'm serious. I already know that. I want you to feel chosen. At that, she went quiet. Then she reached out and smoothed a crease from my shirt, though there wasn't one. I have felt rescued by you, she said, softly. Protected, trusted, but chosen. Her fingers paused over my chest. That is new. I covered her hand with mine. Then let's start there. So we did. No tablecloths, no grand gestures. At 6, I knocked on her bedroom door. She opened it and immediately laughed. You live here, she said. I know. You crossed the hallway. I'm picking you up. Her smile went all warm and private. Then wait. She shut the door in my face. I stood there grinning like an idiot until it opened again. This time she held a small canvas purse and wore red lipstick. I forgot English. Isabel tilted her head. Do I pass inspection? No. Her smile faltered. I stepped closer. You exceed it. She rolled her eyes, but color rose in her cheeks. That was terrible. I'm new at this. At dating? At dating my wife. Her expression softened in a way that made the hallway feel too narrow for my heart. I offered my arm. She looked at it, then at me. Very formal. I can adapt. You may. She took my hand instead. Our first date was tacos from a truck parked 3 blocks from the river. We ate on a bench in the cold, bundled in coats, sharing napkins because I had forgotten to grab enough. Isabel got salsa on her thumb and, without thinking, licked it off. I watched like a man witnessing art. You are staring, she said. I'm reflecting. On what? The beauty of civic infrastructure. We are facing a parking meter. A particularly moving one. She laughed, and the sound went right through me. After dinner, we walked along the river path where winter lights hung in the bare trees. The city looked softer from there, all gold reflections and blurred windows. Isabel kept her hand in mine, swinging it a little between us. How many fake first date stories did we tell? I asked. 3. Only 3? Your sister is persistent. She believed the one where we met when I saved you from choking on an olive. That was your worst work. I hate olives. You improvised tears. I am committed to narrative. We stopped beneath a tree strung with tiny white lights. Her face tilted up toward them, and I took a picture in my mind before remembering I had an actual camera. I lifted it. She noticed. No. One photo. No evidence. We need evidence. The word shifted the air. Interview, marriage, proof. The pressure we had been ignoring walked quietly back between us. Isabel's hand tightened in mine. I hate that, she said. The interview? No, that the real things now look useful. She looked at me. If we take a photo because you think I'm beautiful, I want that. If we take it because someone may question us, I feel… She searched for the word. Contaminated. I lowered the camera. I think you're beautiful. Her eyes flicked to mine. I wanted the picture because 10 years from now, I want to remember the first night I was allowed to look at you like this. Her lips parted. Then she whispered, Oh. I smiled faintly. Still contaminated? No. She stepped closer. Now it is disgustingly romantic. Can I take it? 1. I raised the camera. She didn't pose. She just looked at me. That was worse. Better. Everything. I took the picture, then let the camera hang from its strap. Thank you. You are welcome. She glanced at the camera. Do I get to take one of you? I'm behind the camera for a reason. Coward. Professional. Cowardly professional. She stole the camera before I could stop her and backed up, laughing when I reached for it. Stand there. Isabel. Look chosen. I froze. Her laughter faded. She lifted the camera slowly and looked through the viewfinder. Yes, she said, voice soft. Like that. The shutter clicked. Later, she would show me the photo. I would see myself standing under winter lights with my guard completely gone, looking at her like the answer to every question I had been afraid to ask. But in that moment, I only saw her lowering the camera, her mouth trembling. I crossed to her. Hey. She shook her head. I'm happy. You say that like it hurts. It does a little. She pressed the camera against my chest and I took it. For so long, I thought if I wanted more from this, it made me selfish. Wanting love isn't selfish. With you, it felt dangerous. Because of the arrangement? Because you are good. Her voice thinned. Because I knew you would give and never ask me for anything that might cost me. And I thought, if I love him, I will become another thing he has to carry. I set the camera aside on the bench. Then I held her face between my hands. Listen to me, I said. I don't want to carry you. Her eyes shone. I want to walk beside you. I want to fight about thermostat settings and learn which songs make you homesick and kiss you in grocery aisles. I want ordinary. I want difficult. I want you when you're inconvenient and brilliant and bossy about laundry. A tear slid down her cheek. And I want you to ask things of me, I said. Because I get to ask things of you too. Her fingers curled around my wrists. Like what? I leaned in until our mouths almost touched. Stay after the interview. Her breath caught. Not because you have to, I said. Not because a file says we're married. Stay because you want a life with me. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she kissed me. Not careful this time, not testing, choosing. Her arms went around my neck and I pulled her in, the cold disappearing under the heat of her mouth. She tasted like lime and sugar from the soda we'd shared, and when she whispered my name against my lips, I knew I would remember that sound longer than any vow I had ever photographed. When we finally broke apart, her forehead rested against my chin. Yes, she said. My arms tightened. Yes? Yes, I'll stay. She looked up at me. But you must also stay. I live in the apartment. Ethan. I know. I brushed my thumb over her cheek. I'll stay, all the way. She smiled then, brave and bright. On the walk home, we held hands openly. At our building door, she paused. So, first date evaluation. I groaned. Be gentle. 5 stars. Really? 1 deduction for napkins, 1 bonus for kissing. That math is suspicious. I am an architect, not an accountant. Inside, the apartment was warm and familiar, but different now. Isabel slipped off her coat, then took my hand before I could hang mine. My room or yours? She asked. My pulse kicked hard. She laughed softly at my face. To talk, Ethan. Right, yes, talking. I'm excellent at talking. Liar. She tugged me toward the couch instead. We ended up there for hours, her feet tucked under my thigh, my hand drawing slow circles over her ankle as we talked about everything we had avoided. Daniel, my ex-fiancé, children maybe someday. Chile, fear, faith. What kind of bed we would buy if we finally admitted we only needed one. Near midnight, Isabel fell asleep against my shoulder. This time, I didn't stay still out of fear. I kissed the top of her head and let myself hold her. The week before the interview, our apartment became a museum of us. Photos spread across the dining table. Birthday cards, lease documents, joint bank statements, wedding pictures from the courthouse where Isabel wore a green dress and I looked like a man trying not to pass out. At the time, we'd stood shoulder to shoulder with a polite 6 inches between us. Now Isabel picked up the photo and squinted. We look like we are waiting for a bus. We were nervous. We were ridiculous. You threatened to annul me if I cried. You looked like you might. I did not. She gave me a look. I missed it, I corrected. She smiled, but the smile softened as she traced the edge of the picture. I remember thinking you were very handsome. My pen stopped moving. You did? Yes. She kept her eyes on the photo. And very doomed. Doomed. You had just married a grieving woman with immigration problems because you were too decent to run away. I thought this man is either an angel or an idiot. Final verdict? Her gaze lifted to mine. My idiot. There were 27 responsible things I could have done then. I did none of them. I leaned across the table and kissed her. She smiled against my mouth, then tugged me closer by the front of my shirt, scattering utility bills and tax forms under my elbows. The kiss was supposed to be quick. It became slow, then slower. Her fingers slid into my hair, and when she whispered, "Ethan?" It was not a warning. The doorbell rang. We froze. Isabel's forehead dropped to my shoulder. If that is your sister, I am moving countries voluntarily. I laughed and kissed her hair. Stay here. Because I look guilty? Because you look kissed. She touched her mouth, eyes bright. Good. It was not my sister. It was Miss Hahn, our lawyer, standing in the hallway with a folder thick enough to qualify as furniture. Her gaze moved from my disheveled hair to Isabel behind me, who had ignored my instruction and appeared at my side looking absolutely kissed. Ms. Hahn blinked once. Well, she said, that answers several questions. Isabel choked. I stepped back to let her in, my face hot. We were reviewing documents. So I see. For the next hour, Ms. Hahn coached us at the dining table while our knees touched underneath it. She was kind but unsentimental, the kind of woman who could make a stapler seem intimidating. They may ask where each of you sleeps, she said. The room went silent. Isabel looked at me. I looked at the joint phone bill as if it contained scripture. Ms. Hahn's pen paused. You should answer truthfully. We have separate rooms, Isabel said. Had, I said at the same time. Isabel turned pink. Ms. Hahn's eyebrows lifted. I cleared my throat. We're discussing logistics. Bed size, Isabel added quickly. Very important, Ms. Hahn said, not writing that down. Listen to me. The truth is complicated, but it is not automatically fatal. This marriage began as an arrangement. You both know that. The issue is whether it exists now in good faith. Isabel's hand found mine under the table. I held on. Miss Hahn looked between us, and her expression softened. Do not perform love. People can smell performance. Answer like two people who know each other. After she left, the apartment felt too quiet. Isabel began stacking papers with military focus. I watched her for a minute. Talk to me. I am organizing. You're hiding in office supplies. She set down a folder. I am afraid. I stood and came around the table. Of the interview? Yes, no. She rubbed her brow. Of sitting there and having someone decide what we are. Of them looking at the beginning and not believing the middle. I leaned against the table beside her. Then we'll tell them the middle. And if they ask when we fell in love? I took her hands. I'll tell them I don't know the exact day, that it happened somewhere between soup and stolen socks. Her mouth twitched. I'll tell them, I continued, that you became the first person I looked for when I came home, that I started buying the tea you like before you asked, that I stopped imagining my future as a quiet thing. Her eyes filled. And if they ask me, she whispered, you tell them whatever is true. She looked down at our joined hands, that I loved you first as safety, then as habit, then as hunger. Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. And now as choice. I couldn't breathe for a second. Then I drew her into my arms. She came willingly, pressing her face to my chest. I held her in the middle of the evidence of our life, receipts, photos, forms, proof, and understood that none of it proved us as clearly as the way she relaxed when I touched her. That night, she stood in the doorway of my bedroom wearing sleep shorts, a t-shirt, and an expression of fierce uncertainty. I have a proposal, she said. I sat up. Architectural or marital? Both. She lifted her chin. We buy the bed after the interview. Okay. But tonight I would like to sleep here. My heartbeat changed. She hurried on. Only sleep. I know we are being careful, and I want that. I want to come to you because it is joy, not panic. But I also do not want to go back across the hall and pretend my body does not know where it wants to be. I pushed the covers back. Her face softened. She crossed the room and climbed in beside me like she had been doing it for years. For a moment we were awkward. Elbows, pillows, nervous laughter. You are very large, she complained. This is a queen bed. It is now a democracy. Move. I moved. She curled against me, her back to my chest, and pulled my arm around her waist. Every part of me went still. You can breathe, she murmured. Can I? Recommended. I exhaled slowly. After a while, she covered my hand with hers. Thank you for not making me feel foolish. For wanting this? For wanting slowly and wanting badly at the same time. I kissed her shoulder through the cotton of her shirt. I'm right there with you. She turned in my arms. In the dark, her face was only a shadow, but I knew it now. The slope of her nose, the stubborn set of her mouth, the small scar near her eyebrow from a childhood fall in Valparaiso. She touched my cheek. After the interview, she whispered, take me on a second date. Only if you rate the first one more, honestly. Fine, 6 stars. Out of 5? I am generous with men who let me steal blankets. You're stealing blankets? Already stolen. I laughed, and she kissed me. Softly, sleepily, like a promise that didn't need an audience. The interview came on Friday under a gray, wet sky. We dressed carefully. I wore a navy suit. Isabel wore a rust-colored dress that made her skin glow and made me forget briefly the concept of federal buildings. In the waiting room, plastic chairs lined the walls. Couples sat in tense silence, whispering over folders. Isabel's knee bounced. I placed my hand over it. She looked at me. If I throw up, you still love me? Especially then. That is disgusting. That is marriage. Her laugh was small but real. When our names were called, we stood together. The officer was a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a voice that gave nothing away. He asked dates, addresses, names, who paid which bills, what side of the bed each of us slept on. Recently, Isabel asked before she could stop herself. I coughed. The officer looked up. Isabel went scarlet. Sorry. I reached for her hand under the table. The questions turned sharper. Why had we married so quickly? Why separate bedrooms? Why so few romantic photos in the first year? Isabel's fingers trembled in mine, so I stopped trying to sound perfect. We married because she needed help, I said. The officer looked at me. Beside me, Isabel went very still. It began as a favor, I continued. A serious one. A legal one. We understood that. But living with someone changes the meaning of things. Caring for someone every day changes you. I don't know what box that fits in on your form, but I know I love my wife. Isabel's grip tightened. The officer turned to her. Mrs. Navarro-Reed. She lifted her chin. I did not fall in love with him because he saved me, she said. I fell in love with him because he never asked me to pay for being saved. Her voice shook, but she kept going. And because he knows I hate olives. And because he makes terrible coffee but buys good beans for me. And because when I came out wearing his robe, he looked at me like he had been waiting 2 years to come home. My throat burned. The officer looked down at his notes. For a long moment, there was only the scratch of his pen. Then he closed the file. You'll receive a decision by mail. That was all. Outside, the rain had stopped. We stood on the sidewalk, neither of us speaking. Then Isabel turned to me. Was I too much? I stared at her. Then I took her face in my hands and kissed her right there in front of the federal building, in front of taxis and strangers and a security guard who politely looked away. When I pulled back, her eyes were wet. You were exactly enough, I said. She smiled, and for the first time all week, neither of us looked over our shoulder at the future. We just walked home hand in hand. For 3 days after the interview, Isabel behaved like a woman attempting to bully the universe into obedience. She reorganized the pantry. She scrubbed the grout in the bathroom with a toothbrush. She alphabetized my old photography contracts, then denied it. You put Anderson before Alvarez, I said, holding up 2 folders. Coincidence. You made labels. Labels are not a confession. I caught her around the waist before she could escape the dining room. She made a token protest, but her hands settled over mine almost immediately. You're spiraling, I murmured against her hair. I am improving our filing system. You alphabetized the spices. That was necessary. Paprika cannot live beside oregano like an animal. I turned her in my arms. Her smile faded when she saw my face. I know, she whispered. I brushed my thumb along her jaw. Whatever comes in the mail, we face it. She nodded, but I could feel the tension in her shoulders, so I did the only thing I could think of. I took her on our second date. Not a fancy restaurant, not flowers delivered by a man with a clipboard. I drove her to the botanical garden on the edge of the city, where the greenhouses stayed warm even in winter. The moment we stepped inside, Isabel stopped. Around us, vines climbed glass walls. Orchids hung in impossible colors. The air smelled like wet soil and growing things. She looked at me. You remembered. Your mother had a garden in Valparaiso. Her eyes softened. I told you that once. You were making lentils. You said she grew basil in old coffee cans and yelled at snails. Isabel laughed, but it came out watery. I reached for her hand. I listen. I know. She squeezed my fingers, and that's the problem. How is that a problem? It makes it very hard to be dramatic and misunderstood. We wandered between palms and citrus trees, shedding our coats in the warmth. At the back of the greenhouse, near a tiled fountain, she leaned against me and let her head rest on my shoulder. For once, we didn't talk about immigration. We talked about whether we could keep a basil plant alive. We talked about repainting the bedroom, which had quietly become our bedroom. We talked about visiting Chile someday, not as a desperate return or a forced goodbye, but as a trip we would take together. At the fountain, Isabel turned to me. I want to change my name, she said. I went still. You don't have to. I know. I mean it. Navarro is yours, Daniel's name. Reed. My name. None of that should decide who you are. She smiled faintly. You are very noble. It is sometimes irritating. I've heard. She took both my hands. I want to be Isabel Navarro Reed. Not because paperwork needs it. Not because anyone expects it. Because this marriage started as a bridge and then somehow became a house. I want both names on the door. My chest tightened. You're sure? I am sure about very few things. She stepped closer. But I am sure about you. I kissed her beneath the glass ceiling, surrounded by leaves and winter light, and she kissed me back like she was done apologizing for wanting joy. The approval notice came the next afternoon. A plain envelope, a few official lines, permanent resident status approved. Isabel read it once, then again. Then she sat down hard on the kitchen chair and covered her mouth. I crouched in front of her. Hey! She looked at me over her fingers, eyes flooded. I can stay, she said. I took the letter from her trembling hand and set it on the table. Yes? No more waiting for someone to decide if my life is allowed to continue here. No more. She inhaled sharply, then let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I pulled her into my arms and she folded into me completely. For a long time, we just held each other on the kitchen floor. Then she pulled back, wiped her face, and said, We need champagne. We have half a bottle of flat ginger ale. Romantic. I can do better. You have 10 minutes. I came back with champagne, grocery store flowers, and a chocolate cake with congratulations, written in blue icing because it was the only one left. Isabel stared at it. This is for a child's soccer team. It was either this or happy retirement, Gary. She picked up a fork. Congratulations it is. We ate cake straight from the plastic container at the dining table, surrounded by the same evidence we had once gathered to prove our marriage was real. Only now, nobody else needed convincing. That night, Isabel stood in the doorway of our bedroom wearing the navy robe. My robe. Our robe. She leaned against the frame, arms crossed, lips curved. I think, she said, we are finished pretending. I set down the 2 champagne glasses. Yes, I said, we are. I walked to her slowly, giving her time because that was how we had learned to love each other. Carefully at first, then with courage. She met me halfway. Her hands came to my chest. Mine settled at her waist. This is not gratitude, she whispered. I know. This is not fear. I know. This is not paperwork. I smiled. Definitely not paperwork. She laughed softly, then rose on her toes. When she kissed me, it felt like the end of a long, locked hallway and the first open door. By the following spring, the apartment looked different. Her drafting table moved closer to the window. My camera shelves took over the hallway. A basil plant sat in a coffee can on the sill, alive through what Isabel called my inspirational leadership and what I called her threatening it in Spanish. We bought a king-size bed and argued for 40 minutes over sheets. We hosted my sister for dinner, and Isabel told the true story of our first kiss, which made my sister cry even harder than the fake Olive story. On Sundays, we walked to the taco truck by the river. On rainy nights, she wore my socks. Sometimes I still found old sticky notes in camera bags I hadn't used in years. Eat real food, American raccoon. I kept every one. A year after she came out of the shower in my robe and changed everything, I photographed a wedding at City Hall. Afterward, I found Isabel waiting outside for me in a green dress, the same color she had worn the day we married for practical reasons and impossible mercy. She held out her hand. Come on, she said. Take me home, husband. I looked at her, my wife, my roommate, my best accidental decision, and lifted our joined hands to kiss her knuckles. Behind us, another couple posed on the courthouse steps, nervous and glowing at the beginning of whatever story they had chosen. But I was looking at Isabel, at the woman I had married before I knew how to love her, and loved before I knew how to say it. And as we walked home together under the soft gold of evening, her hand warm in mine, I understood that some vows don't become true when you speak them. Some vows become true slowly, in shared kitchens, in separate rooms, in stolen socks, in one old Navy robe worn by the right woman at exactly the right time. What would you have done if your roommate came out of the shower wearing your robe and said it was time to stop pretending? Have you ever experienced something similar where a fake arrangement or friendship turned into real love? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next